He entered as the hook of the first episode and has had us scratching our heads ever since. Amazon's Rings of Power is laying out a lot of details around the Second Age of Middle-earth, but one question we don't expect to be answered early on in the show's run: who is the stranger? We're diving into the main theories and reasons for who this unnamed character could be, so stick around and see if any of your ideas are included. Theory 3. A younger Gandalf. He's probably the most obvious choice, and we couldn't expect anyone else in the role but Ian McKellen. But there are a lot of things sticking up for this to be a younger version of the Grey Wizard himself. The stranger first appears in the closing of episode 1, when a meteor flies across the sky and lands near the home of the Harfoots, ancestor race of the Hobbits. Curious, a young Nori and her friend Poppy find that it isn't a meteor lodged in the fiery crater, but a bearded man.
Nori, don't!
Now, the fact that this guy turned up in a ball of fire already slightly hints at Gandalf. In Tolkien's original works, when Gandalf did first arrive in Middle-earth, being known as Aloran, he was a Maiar spirit who wielded the use of fire. We also see that the stranger wears gray. It's something small, but look at the image. Bearded, gray garments. It reminds us of Gandalf's associated color as a member of the Astari, an order of angelic Maiar that took the form of men. Fellow members Saruman, Radagast, Alatar, and Palando were associated with white, brown, and blue respectively. Then, there's the moment with the fireflies at the end of episode 2. When Nori and Poppy bring lanterns in order to light their way, it appears that this bearded stranger is able to communicate with them. What does this remind you of? The way in which he speaks to the insects to create a star map in the sky resembles the way in which Gandalf has the ability to communicate with eagles.
Eagles!
And also how he does so with the moth during the events of the Fellowship of the Ring, when sending for an eagle to come and help him escape Saruman's clutches. Did you also notice the markings the stranger was making on rocks and trees during episode 2? They look quite familiar. Fans may be quick to note that they're very similar to the markings Gandalf left on Bilbo's door to signal to Thor Oakenshield and his company of dwarves where they would be meeting in The Hobbit. It's all adding up, isn't it? You also can't miss the fact that this being landed in the base of the Hobbit's ancestor race. Throughout the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings stories, Gandalf has a strong appreciation and fondness for hobbits. Wouldn't it make sense for us to be finding out where that love originates from? This is strengthened by Nori's line, "He could have landed anywhere, and he landed here. I know it sounds strange, but somehow I just know he's important. It's like there's a reason this happened, like I was supposed to find him. Me." Could this be foreshadowing Nori's importance in being the one who helps a younger Gandalf to see the useful and likable qualities of these short beings? Unfortunately, though, there's a timeline-sized hole in this plot. Originally in Tolkien's works, Gandalf didn't arrive in Middle-earth until the Third Age. Gandalf arrived in order to help in the fight against the growing power of Sauron. With the series being set a whole age earlier, it does take weight off of the theory. But could the writers be changing the character's origin slightly for the sake of fun storytelling? Potentially, but there is another possibility, which we'll get to later. Theory 2. He's Sauron. If you paid attention during the show so far, you'll know that Sauron is very much alive during this time period. The series begins in the Second Age, taking place after the defeat of Morgoth, Sauron's master. From what's been gathered and from the looks of Galadriel's quest, Sauron has gone into hiding in the midst of his master being bested. Where he is, we don't know, but maybe he's a lot closer than you think, in the form of a speechless, non-shaven individual. Showrunner J.D. Payne has been quoted as saying in an interview with Total Film earlier this year, "When he appears, it might be in a way people aren't expecting," when referring to Sauron's return to the story. Interesting, right? It's worth noting that during the Second Age, Sauron did appear as a shapeshifter known as Anatar, a shapeshifter. So, in theory, the ultimate big bad of the Lord of the Rings books could appear in any form at this point. What's to stop him from showing up as a Middle-earth hobo to throw everyone off his scent? All wizards appear as bearded men, after all. It would be a perfect disguise for him. If you've kept an eye on the show's promotion, you may also notice something about this individual's character poster. He's holding an apple. Cast your minds back to your knowledge of the Bible, wherein the story of Adam and Eve symbolizes how an apple is a bad omen. Could this be hinting at a darker presence with this character than expected? Probably the biggest indicator of Sauron being this stranger is something that Galadriel says early in episode 1, when leading her warriors into a frozen fortress that was formerly inhabited by Sauron himself. a soldier is heard saying that his hands are numb, with Galadriel replying that the place is so evil, their torches give off no warmth.
This place is so evil, our torches give off no warmth.
Now, the importance of this doesn't come to fruition until near the start of episode 2, when Nori falls into the crater made by the stranger's arrival. Nori mentions to Poppy that the fiery surface of the crater isn't hot, and neither is its actual fire. Linking those two pieces of dialogue up, this could be hinting that the stranger is evil, and maybe even the very evil Galadriel was speaking of. Speaking of Galadriel, doesn't it appear strange that just as she's about to sail off into the undying lands, this unknown being falls from the sky? The one individual who was hell-bent on discovering and killing Sauron in his hiding place is about to be gone forever, and the stranger makes a grand entrance. Could Sauron have finally felt comfortable enough to return to Middle-earth? Theory 1. He's another wizard. Yeah, a lot of the story notes do point to Gandalf. The markings he makes, his communication with creatures, his appearance, everything in general, really. But these are things he could share with others of his kind. Tolkien's original works named 5 Istari to exist: Curamo, Olorin, Iwendil, Alatar, and Palando. Curamo went on to be Saruman, Olorin went on to be Gandalf, and Iwendil went on to be Radagast. That leaves Alatar and Palando yet to appear, who are known as the Blue Wizards. With the Blue Wizards, there's a nice piece of information from Tolkien lore that makes it possible that the stranger's identity is one of them. Whereas the wizards we've met already arrived in Middle-earth during the Third Age, it's said that the Blue Wizards arrived during, you guessed it, the Second Age, around the time of the forging of the Rings of Power. Interesting. Very interesting. It could very much be that we've met Saruman or Radagast here, and like our Gandalf theory, the origin story is being twisted so as to create a more interesting and unique tale. But would the guys behind the show really want to mess with the mythology? Tolkien also never really expanded on the roles of the Blue Wizards in his works, which leaves Rings of Power a lot of room to tell their stories with a clean slate. Rings of Power's showrunner Patrick McKay was even quoted as saying the following when asked by Vanity Fair about whether or not the stranger is Saruman, Gandalf, or Radagast. I would say those are not the only beings, those names, in that class. Make of that what you will, but it does seem that he's hinting at individuals under the same umbrella, just not those named wizards we've already met in the flesh. As for which Blue Wizard the stranger might turn out to be, we will have to wait and find out. So, we're only a few episodes in, meaning there's a lot more to uncover about this unknown visitor from the stars. Is he a friend or foe? Is he a familiar face, or is he someone we're going to learn about entirely from the beginning? Rings of Power has a lot to explain in the coming weeks for sure. Who do you think this unknown stranger is? Weigh in with your opinions in the comment section below. Let's just pray his identity doesn't get left in a cliffhanger. Could our hearts really handle it?